Hi, I'm Steelfur Speaks. It has been a while. I have been busy. I've been on the road with conferences. And, as much as I like recording videos for you guys, once you have been speaking on a stage for like 3 or 4 hours in a day or a couple of events a week, getting on to record a podcast, that's a lot of work. Thankfully, I don't have any spreadsheets with me, and I have no graphs or PowerPoint presentations, so I'm actually feeling quite good about everything. We have a really good meta, don't we? I mean, just looking around, the meta seems really good. Now, this was a draft calling, but we also had a calling last night, and do you know what? The meta's really cool. It is a bit mist-heavy. I mean, if you look at the results from yesterday's calling, I think it was, 2 Zens, 2 News, 3 Enigmas, and an Azalea. So, a bit mist-heavy, but I will say the tables just under the top 8 did have a lot of, I think, like auroras and stuff in, so there was a bit of Rosetta representation, but it does kind of feel like the power of mist has reasserted itself to an extent. Is that a problem? I don't know. Like, I've kind of said already that it feels like some of the heroes, the Rosetta heroes like Verdance do feel a bit undercooked, but they are still strong. Aurora's strong, Florian is clearly strong in certain situations. Ocilio is strong in certain situations. So it's not so bad that not every, card and not every set is as powerful as the previous one. And obviously we've seen, the power of Mist by now. I don't know. It's fine. I think everything's fine. I think everything's grand. If the Hunted comes out and it's like at least a competitor with one of the Mist heroes, like Aurora is, I think we're actually in a really good place, and I'm kind of happy with everything that's going on there. I'm really excited for the Hunted. I will be at the world premiere in Prague. I've already booked all my tickets, so if you're going, you want to see me, I will be there. Do come say hello. I haven't really ever organised a channel, drinks or anything like that, but I have been thinking about maybe if it's a good idea. I'm not notoriously antisocial. I just don't necessarily, for the amount of travel that I do, I don't actually travel very well. My stomach doesn't really like changing time zones that much. So often at these events, I'm the guy who's not feeling very well in the corner because he ate something that wasn't even that weird, but it was different from what he usually eats, that kind of thing. So, I've never really organised like a channel social event or one of these kind of things, but I could. I mean, you guys know what I look like, even though I don't have my camera on now. It's currently not working, but I wanted to record this episode anyway. On to the main topic of this week's episode, which is the world tour, and I'm just gonna have just point out Count Your Blessings Blue being banned is fine. I mean, I would have rather they just banned the whole card, but Victor's still using 2 types of Count Your Blessings. I don't really follow the logic that Count Your Blessings is what a control deck should look like in Fab. The whole point is that life matters, not that it doesn't matter. Control decks, I feel like, are supposed to neutralize opponents' threats and reward long-term gameplay, but Count Your Blessings feels like it's neutralizing your opponent's threats by just healing yourself from the damage. I still don't like how it's generic. I think if this was in Verdance or Florian, I wouldn't have minded so much. As an Earth theme, it just feels weird, and I still maintain it just feels weird when it can be in any class, even if they don't play very well with it. It's a bit odd. I don't like it. I'm not going to stop liking it. I still maintain that World's Final was just not fun, and I don't find Count Your Blessings fun. Banning one of them is a good balanced decision without removing the card entirely. We've seen, in matches, it's a high quality design decision to just get rid of one and reduce the effectiveness rather than banning a load of them. It's not that much of a problematic card that they need to just ban it all continuously, but I still maintain I don't think the game needs generic large scale life gain as a thing that exists. I just don't think it does. And I'll stick with that, even if it's not played in any decks anymore because they banned one copy of it. High Octane going just makes a lot of sense. The card was creating some crazy, crazy stuff. So it's very interesting. And then the changes to Living Legend. Zen coming back is yeah, you fucked it the first time, right? And you made a hero that was too powerful, and then you let him Living Legend. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I would much rather if they preemptively banned these heroes, like powerful cards, like over-banned. You know, like in Zen, that would be getting rid of 5 or 6 cards so that he's not super powerful and not racing towards Living Legend. I would rather they didn't let him dominate a season and then bring him back, or then balance him after the fact. I would rather they just, actively police the game better if they saw something degenerate in balance. And if they didn't, then that's fine, but they can react faster and just be like, look, Zen looks like he's been broken by the community faster than we thought he would be. We're preemptively banning these 3 cards until we can decide how to balance him properly so he doesn't gain Living Legend points too much. But, that's a toss-up case, because, like, if you do that, then people can't have fun with the broken deck, but equally he doesn't affect the meta as much when it actually happens. So it's a bit of a, pros and cons situation, but I definitely think for me, I'd rather he hadn't raced across Living Legend for the first, how fast he did the first time, and I'd rather that he, didn't dominate that Blitz skirmish season the way he did when he came out. I feel like that was just not good, and they could have balanced around that, because it was pretty clear from the classic constructed season that happened before the skirmish season that he was obviously going to do this. So they should have preemptively banned some cards for him in Blitz rather than just letting him race across the finish line. Because, he dominated that season, and I would argue in not a fun way. So I think he would have been better off if they had done more before that. And now they've obviously had to bring him back because he went too quickly, and all the Japanese players bought into it. So they're clearly reaping the pain of that decision not to preemptively ban cards. Enough cards to balance him for that skirmish season before it happened, but they're in between a rock and a hard place because a lot of Japanese people just bought into the game and bought Zen, and now suddenly he's not legal in Blitz. They have to obviously do something about it. So it was just a whole cavalcade of messy that could have been solved by just actively banning some more cards from Zen until you figured out what would make him balanced, right? And once you'd figured that out, you could have fixed the problem, and then he would never have gained as many Living Legend points as he did. I do agree with the change to make Living Legend in Blitz 1,000 points, though, just because it's a random number, so it doesn't really matter whether it's 500 or 1,000, but it makes sense that it should align with Classic Constructed and just be one number, so people don't get confused. And obviously, you could just double all the Blitz points that come out, so it doesn't really change how quickly people are going away, but it does just align the two, which I do like. So I like that. There's lots of stuff in here that I like. The Zen thing just annoys me because it's indicative of a stylistic choice that Fab has had in the past, which is letting people enjoy the broken stuff before they correct it, which is not necessarily incorrect, but I think it is incorrect when it leads that hero to go Living Legend. So an example of it going properly is when they let Fi have Stubby Hammerers for one tournament and on the first weekend of release, and then after that they were like, well, you've seen it in action, that's fine, it's gone now, and then Fi still hasn't Living Legend, versus Zen, who had all of his cards for an entire skirmish season and just dominated that skirmish season to an unfun extent, and then got Living Legend, right, in record time. So, there is a correct way to do what they're trying to do as well, which is let people have a bit of fun in the game before they ban stuff, but we're not there with what they're doing at the moment. Right, let's talk about World Tour and why I don't like it, right? Let's just start off with the obvious, okay? Every event is now branded as World Tour this, World Tour that, right? Yeah. They're battle hardens on here, but when you go onto the video, right, and we have been onto the video and the stream and stuff, it's World Tour. Oh, it's World Tour Geneva, it's World Tour Portland, it's World Tour Florence. And you know what they're aiming for, which is to give you the impression that every Fab event is big, every Fab event is part of seeing the world, playing the game, that kind of thing. But what does it actually do? It actually confuses the hell out of me. right? It actually confuses the hell out of me. There is a huge difference between a battle hardening to calling and a pro tour. Calling something world tour and then the location removes the very, very easy to access first glance information of what level of event it is. So if I'm thinking, oh, it's a world tour of, which one just happened? It was World Tour Florence, World Tour Columbus. You know, if I just bring that up in the background on the side while I can do that, you know, if we think about something being branded as World Tour X, World Tour Y, it removes the confusion. It adds a lot of unnecessary confusion to what's going on, right? And this is what I mean, right? So we have clear branding before, right? Which is, this would be calling Kuala Lumpur. And even here it's calling. But suddenly all of that is just replaced by this World Tour Chicago, you know, World Tour X, World Tour Y. And I think the headline really just loses a lot of power, right? It's not World Tour Wellington. This is a battle hardened. And this is a calling, right? But initially when I'm reading this, what it is starts to get a bit confused. And when the commentators were talking about it during the event, they were talking about World Tour Kuala Lumpur rather than calling Kuala Lumpur, right? That's a big difference, because this is confusing messaging, right? I get that it's a world tour, I get that it goes everywhere, but the fact is that what the actual event is should be the headline piece of information. It should still be battle hardened Houston. It should still be calling Kuala Lumpur. Like, that is the most relevant piece of information, right? Is what level of event it is. And I don't really like that it's not that. I really don't like that it's getting confused, right? Because what level of event it is does matter. And I think they're just lending themselves some confusion on that front, which I don't really like. Onto the World Tour itself, it's just a rebranding of the traditional name for, you know, the Fab competitive circuit. It's now called the World Tour. I don't mind that. I quite like that. I quite like the logo and just the design of it. I like the fact that all of these things are now seen as part of the same, that they were previously, but they're still, you know, re-emphasizing they're part of the same ecosystem. I quite like that. It is literally just, when you're doing marketing, I don't think putting World Tour and then the location is better than saying battle hardened and the location, right? I think that's just confusing. I don't really like that, but I think they can work on that and they can make it better. And then we have the World Tour Player of the Year, which I have mixed feelings about. Okay, what are my mixed feelings? My mixed feelings are they're just very, very simple. I feel like Flesh and Blood is once again doubling down on rewarding the highest performing players at the expense of a lot of the people who want to go to their events but feel like they're not being appropriately rewarded. Now, I'm not speaking for myself, because I don't even have the budget to make it to a lot of these events at the moment. You know, saving for a house. I recently got into Warhammer. You know, these things cost money. But you know, if I did, then I would probably not be winning them, right? I mean, who knows, right? If I played Fab a lot more, who knows how much I would be winning. But based on my current level of play, you know, even if I went to all of these callings and pro tours and battle hardens, I probably wouldn't be winning them, right? I would probably not be losing entirely either. I would be finishing middle of the pack, occasionally getting a couple bits of cash, and generally walking away with, you know, some money maybe, but not covering the costs of my own travel, and not really getting anything extra in prizes beyond the entry to these events. Even if I was a top performer, I would probably not get a large amount in prizes. But do you know who would get a large amount of prizes? Well, it would be the person who was winning those events or finishing in the top 8, etc., etc., etc. So what's my point? My point is, we have this World Tour points system, and on the face of it, it's actually really cool. We have a Player of the Year, we have 2 regional champions, and then we have second place regional champions and third place regional champions. So in total, they're going to be giving out 45 75 plus 15, I think $90,000 to these people. And that's really good. So the top performing players from each region are going to get a split of $90,000, right? Why then, if it's really nice, do I not like it? Okay, there's a few things going on here. I might be alone in thinking that flesh and blood competitive players are currently rewarded enough. If you win a calling, if you win a battle hardened, if you win Worlds or a Pro Tour, I think you kind of get enough. And I'll go even further, and I think if you finish in the top 5th to 8th of these tournaments consistently, you get enough. I think you get enough. I think you do. I think there's an argument to be made that you get enough money. And even if you win nationals, for example, I think you get a good amount of money, right? Maybe battle hardens aren't, but then they're lower stakes tournaments, and I've had massive rants before about how I think battle hardens are terribly prized. They're too all or nothing, which massively changes their cost effectiveness based on the scale of the event. So if it's a 96 person battle harden versus a 500 person battle harden, there's massively different having an all or nothing event. But I understand why they do it. It strikes me as too big an event to have bad prizing or prizing that's so top heavy, and for that reason I have not actually attended a battle hardened that wasn't tied to a large event once in my entire Fab career. I feel like the prizing just does not justify the risk of going there and getting nothing for showing up or doing anything. I just feel like it's just not worth the effort, and they're not sensational enough. So I haven't been. They're not for me. I think they're all right if they're in your local region, but unsurprisingly, London doesn't really get battle hardens, right? So I haven't been. So I don't really rate battle hardens anyway. But my point is, I think if you're winning any of these large tier events, you are getting enough. And I feel like the people who are going to win the World Player of the Year are going to be the people who are already winning these tournaments. I don't think that's a particularly radical thing to say. I think you're looking at the people like Michael Fung, Brody Spurlock, you're looking at Michael Hamilton, you're looking at those players who are consistently winning these events are going to finish in the top. Because, if you consistently come in 32nd place at the World Championships or at Pro Tours, you're only going to end up with 15 points. Whereas if you win one of them, you obviously are going to do very, very well if you come second. So it is the consistent performers who are going to win. And in my opinion, those people kind of get enough money already. And genuinely, I would like to see more prizes for people in the 9th to 32nd and below. Now, I know this is a competitive game, and I'm not talking about being overly generous or throwing open the floodgates, but I think genuinely, if you want to take one key takeaway from this video, I think that Fab has a problem, both in its branding as a top tier competitive game and in how generous it is at the mid-tier competitive level. I think that Fab is exceedingly generous at the armory level. I think they have really good promos, cold foils that consistently sell for a decent amount, playmats, all that kind of stuff. And I think Fab is very, very generous at the top level. This 1.5 million that people can win, the new World Tour Points, Player of the Year. Player of the Year is a great idea, by the way. It is worth having it there so people can compete cross-region, having regional champions, all of these things. I think it's fantastic. Where does Fab really suffer? In my mind, Fab really suffers at the mid-tier international competitive level. And what do I mean by that? I mean the people who do not consistently place high enough to get a significant amount of money and who do not consistently do badly enough to feel like they shouldn't go to these events. So we're talking about people who want to go to a large number of international events, don't consistently place high enough to get something, and then don't feel rewarded in any way for the toil. except for the carrot of do better scrub and you can get some prizes, right? Now, I'm not saying that's not a valid argument, right? These people have aspirations to improve. But I feel like there should be something else in it for people. And we've talked about what that should look like a few times on this channel, but let's just go over some ideas that we've had again. Where are our experience-based pricing system? Where is our milestone experience-based rewards? Someone has accumulated 3,000 points of lifetime experience. Where is their challenge coin or promo or special water flask or something for playing the game that much? And you can't just rack up 3,000 experience points, go into your armory every week, unless you've been playing since before the start of the game. You have to be participating in large-scale international tournaments. So adding an XP-based pricing would give a reward for the grinders, for the people who go and don't necessarily perform, and they go for the social and they go for the fun, and it will be a reason for those people to consistently show up to events even if they don't win, because they know that that ticking up of XP will get them somewhere eventually, right? The other idea, which I've had before and I really, really like, stolen directly from Legend of the Five Rings card game, is a prize for the highest placing person on day 2 of a large event with each individual hero. When this has been done in games that I've played, people have gone crazy for it. It directly rewards people playing their favorite hero in a very competitive environment and doing very well against them. It directly pits people in competition, not with the best players at the tournament, not with the bandwagoners, but with other people playing on the same level as them, with the same handicaps. And, you know, there are lots of people out there who would not mind, hey, I didn't win the tournament. Just think about this. I didn't win. I didn't cash at Nationals, or I didn't cash at, well, say not Nats, right? Say Calling Pro Tour World Championships, right? I didn't cash at the Calling, but I made day 2 and I was the highest placed Riptide. I got this cool piece of Riptide gear that you could only get from doing that. Maybe it's a full art or an alt art or an extended or a piece of playmat or a token or something. And then suddenly you have this series of super rare tokens or art pieces that can only be gained by being consistently dedicated to a hero. And maybe it's the highest placing person outside of the top 8 or who didn't get another prize. Maybe it's a reward that cancels out anyone who came 1st or 8th or got cash and just rewards people who are in the milieu, who are in the amount of people who don't get a serious prize. It rewards finishing a tournament, which is one thing I think that we should be rewarding at these large-scale events. And I know why we don't. If we're being completely blunt, you know, we've talked before about how my channel is for the consumer. Do you know why there's no incentive for staying in a calling if you're not going to make cash or get money? Do you know why that is? It's because if you drop out of the event, you are more likely to play side events, right? And I'm not here being a doomer, but I think one of the reasons we don't have a more generous pricing system at these large events is because they need you to drop from the events in order to get more ticket sales on the side event revenue, right? Just putting that out there for you guys to think about. You know, these events do lose money. They are a marketing exercise. They cost money to run. It's one of the reasons that Magic the Gathering stopped doing them originally, is that they cost money to run. They are not necessarily a net positive, and you have to pay the company to run them, either Living Realms or Tournament Center or SGC or whoever does them in America or other places. They cost a lot of money to run. Staff, everything. You think they break even? I don't think they do. I don't think they do. And if they do, it's not by a lot. So the reason we don't have more generous pricing at Callings isn't even necessarily because LSS thinks we don't need it. It might just be because they want you to be dropping and playing other things to increase their likelihood of breaking even on these events. Just putting that thought out there. But even so, I think there does need to be more prizes and acknowledgement for mid-tier competitive players who play the game in, out, and go to large events frequently, but do not finish at a high tier. And I do not think adding those prizes will dilute the competitive nature of the game. You're still giving away $1.5 million a year to competitive players. You can still have your World Tour points. But I think there just needs to be a little bit more for the people in the middle. Because what that does is give semi-competitive players something to aspire to. I can't win a Pro Tour, right? I don't play enough. But I could be the best placing Fi at a second day Pro Tour event, assuming Fi isn't the top meta choice. And I would find that prize very rewarding. It would give me a reason to play my favorite hero instead of chasing the meta. And I think that is valuable enough that LSS should consider it. All right, that's my rant for this week. Let me know if you've enjoyed it. Sorry that I haven't got the camera on. As I said, it is currently just away with the fairies, a bit not working, but I will have it back soon. Do you agree with me that the World Tour or the World Tour point system is a bit confusing? Like, I mean, I've seen the same joke every time. It's like, well, you know who's going to win it in advance, right? I mean, Brody Spurlock even goes to local armories, so he's probably going to win the World Tour, right, too? Just putting that out there, you know. And if I can look at the World Tour and say, I know who's going to win that before it happens, then is the system actually thing? Or is he already winning enough money? It's just a question, right? Just a question. And should that money be spent elsewhere? Because, you know, for $90,000, you could make a lot of promos for mid-tier players and bolster. You could make a whole experience-based reward system with that money. Anyway, that's just a thought for you all. Enjoy your week. Let me know what you're doing in Flesh and Blood. Let me know if I will see you in Prague, and we can get a beer or something together. And have a good week. I'll talk to you all soon.